Good morning, students. We are here again with our online classes for class 11 geography. We have already done the first chapter of fundamental of physical geography, in which you have studied what are the different disciplines which are associated with the discipline of geography and why we need to study geography. Now we'll start the physical part of the geography. So we start with the chapter, that is chapter 3, interior of the earth. Now we all know that it is very difficult to know the interior of the earth, because as you go down below the surface, the temperature tends to increase. So but still we need to know the earth's interior for two reasons. The surface of the earth which we see around us is not a stable surface, and it's not a even surface, not a stable, it's not a stable surface, and it's not a even surface. So we find there are two things about the surface of the earth, that the surface of the earth is uneven with the presence of plateaus, mountains, water bodies, and we find it is not stable because even today the height of Himalaya is increasing. It means everything which is there on the surface of earth, it's changing every day. The change is not noticeable, but with a time gap we see the change. So we need to know the earth's interior, that how these changes are possible. Some of the changes are possible because of the external forces, which we will be talking in the other chapters. In this chapter we are basically concerned about the interior of the earth, because we need to know the earth's interior, how it affects the exterior part of the earth. Now to know the earth's interior, if we talk about, the problem is it's difficult to know. The reason is the temperature condition as you go beyond a certain limit. And if you talk about the earth interior, if I draw a cross section, which you must have seen in your previous classes, is consisting of crust, mantle and core. Your crust is more or less 30 kilometers. But if we talk about digging the earth to know what is there in the layer of the crust, we can go through only till 4 kilometers. Because if you talk about the deepest mine today in the world is located in Johannesburg, that is Pomang gold mine in South Africa. If you talk about the other ways to know the earth, that is the direct way, you can drill the earth to a level of 12 kilometers. That is either by deep sea drilling projects on continental crust or in oceanic crust. So your knowledge regarding the earth, that is through direct observation, is limited to this. Forget about reaching 30 kilometers, that is the crust, which is the average thickness of crust. Then we have mantle layer, which is 2900 kilometers thickness. If we talk about the entire, from the center of the earth, it means the radius of the earth, it is 6370 kilometers. So you can see that it will be very difficult to know what lies here in these parts. But there must be some way to know the earth's interior. So geographers have divided the sources to know the earth into two categories. If you want to know the earth's interior or to gather knowledge regarding the earth's interior, you have to divide your sources into direct evidences or the direct sources of information, or we can depend on the indirect sources. So regarding the direct sources, we said that it can be by mining, which will help us to get those minerals and by studying the rocks and minerals we can know what is the structure of earth to a certain extent, or we can go through deep sea drilling to know the earth's interior. The last one, volcanism, the most important source of earth's interior, the source of information about the earth interior, because during a volcanism things from the interior of earth which are located at a greater depth comes on the surface, and then it can be taken to lab to do a research what it is composed of. If we talk about the indirect sources, the indirect sources depends on, if we talk about temperature, we all know temperature tends to increase as you go with depth. So with variation in temperature you can predict that what is the situation of the minerals. Second, there is a density change. Here I would like to discuss about that if you know about the earth's formation, earth was formed nearly 4.5 million years ago, and when it was formed it was in a stage of volatile stage, that is the primordial stage. The temperature was high, the density was high. Slowly and gradually it started cooling down and the size of the earth started reducing. Once it started cooling down, it was noticed that all the materials which are there in the earth started separating from each other on the basis of their density. It means the lighter materials were on the surface and the denser materials at the bottom. So let's see how. If you talk about the crust, if you have little knowledge about your previous information, it is made up of silica and aluminium. Then comes silica and magnesium, and then the denser minerals like nickel, and Fe stands for iron. So depending on the density of minerals, you can get a source of information what is the earth made up of. Then comes your study of magnetic field. We all know earth has a magnetic field. Definitely it will have a magnetic field because the core of the earth is made up of iron. Then we have gravity anomaly. The word gravity anomaly means, all of you know, earth has a gravitational pull, but this gravitational pull is less compared on equator than near the poles, because your poles are flat, your earth is bulged out near the equator. So it has been noticed that the gravitational pull is more near the poles than compared to the equator. This is known as gravity anomaly. It means the moment you start moving from equator to poles, the gravitational pull keeps on changing. Then comes your fifth, that is the meteors. Meteors are also made up of same or similar kind of materials which is earth made up of. So when meteors fall on the surface of the earth, meteor showers, we can study those meteors and we can come to a conclusion that earth may be made up of that similar kind of material. Now the sixth and the most important, seismic waves. Seismic waves are the one related to the release of energy. We are in a part of the country which comes under the earthquake prone area, and we all have felt seismic waves few years back when the earthquake had taken place and the center of that hypocenter or the focus was Nepal, and we also felt the tremor badly, and there was such a lot of devastation which we had seen. So seismic waves also tells us a lot about the earth's interior, the composition of earth interior. So in this chapter basically We are not going to study in detail about all the direct and indirect sources. Rather, in this chapter, we are going to study what is a volcano and how volcano helps us to know the earth interior, what are the types of volcano on the basis of nature, and what are the different features of volcano. If you talk about the indirect sources, we are not going to study about the temperature differences or density or magnetic field or gravity or meteors. The chapter entirely covers your seismic waves, how the earthquake waves tells us about the composition of Earth's interior. So let's start about the volcano. Volcano is basically an opening on the surface of Earth through which we find the magma, which is the source if this I considered the magma chamber. This comes out in the form of lava. Now this magma chamber, where is it located? If I talk about the crust, this is your continental crust. You will find the thickness varies from 0 to 30 kilometers. And below the crust, we have a layer of upper mantle. Because mantle has been divided into two layers. Lower mantle. Now this upper mantle layer, which is present over here, also known as asthenosphere. And this is one of the very important layer for us to know. Why? Because the word asthenosphere or asthen means weak zone. It's in a it's viscous in nature, or you can say it's semi-liquid in nature, and the layer which is below it is solid. This layer of asthenosphere and this crust together is known as lithosphere. So we were studying about that what are the three different spheres on Earth. One of the important sphere which consists of land mass is lithosphere. So what is basically lithosphere? Lithosphere consists of crust. This is continental crust. If oceans are there, because we know it has been seen sometimes that there are oceans and the land continues. So this is your oceanic crust. Oceanic crust is thin and your continental crust is thick. And the source of magma, which comes out in the form of volcanic lava, is your magma chamber. This opening through which the magma is trying to come out is known as vent. The opening on the surface through which it is coming out is your crater. Sometimes it has been seen that there are some gaps in between and magma tries to come out from these gaps. The lava tries to come out through these gaps. So these are your fissures. When there is a volcanic eruption, you will find it is not only which you can see lava, but you see a lot of cloud of dust, ashes and gases like chlorine, nitrogen dioxide, sulfur dioxide. So we find there are different kind of things which comes out during a volcanic eruption. Now when this volcanic eruption takes place, it means you can see that this portion, this magma which is here in the mantle layer is coming on the surface. Now studying this lava when it solidifies in the lab will give us an idea about what is mantle layer made up of, what is the condition of mantle layer. Now one thing I was discussing about astronosphere, why it is so important, because you know that all the continents are basically plates, and all these plates are not stationary but are moving here and there, and we will talk about the different types of movement in some other chapter as well. These plates are moving because they are on astronosphere layer, and this region is all made up of such elements which are radioactive elements, and they generate a force, they generate an energy, and because of that energy we find the plates are moving here and there. So this is all about how we know about the earth during a volcanic eruption, or what is basically a volcanic eruption. So this much for today. We will see you tomorrow again with the same chapter with other topics. Thank you.